This is the Messiah Hour with Ari Lewis.
Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the Messiah Hour, hosted by Ari Lewis. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to email us throughout the program, you can do so at arilewisshow@hotmail.com, or you can email the station at israelsports@newsradio@gmail.com. And if you'd like to make a financial contribution, you can do so through my PayPal account. That is israelsportsradio@yahoo.com. The PayPal account is different than the station email address, so I'll repeat it one more time, israelsportsradio@yahoo.com. Lag BaOmer is upon us Wednesday night, May 6th. Everyone has different plans, but do people know what exactly are the reasons behind some of our traditions? On the line to discuss that and more, our favorite rabbi from Tzfat, co-author of the book, The World of the Ger, Rabbi David Katz. Rabbi, how are you doing out there?
Hey, Ari, thanks for having me back on as always.
Indeed. So let's first start with the beginning and concept of we're in the middle of Pesach till Shavuot. What exactly is that? Because the Rambam says that is one big Chol Moed this period of time. So please discuss that further.
This is one of the true gems that you can find in the Torah commentaries. Everybody knows the general flow of holidays throughout the Jewish year. We don't need to get so deep into that. But it's a special time when you're going to get into Passover, obviously. You're going to clean your house to get ready for the holiday, have your Leil Seder. And if you're in Israel, you keep one Seder. So I tend to focus on kind of the Israeli aspect of things. And a lot of people disappear for the next 50 days. And we're going to have Shavuos and kind of oscillate back to an American mindset. I remember when I was first brought into Torah Judaism, I was kind of shocked. They asked me if I wanted to stay up learning until 4 a.m. No, thank you. That was my reaction then. I didn't know what it was. And so everybody has kind of a different take and a personal approach of how they do Shavuos. It's always an issue. Are you going to pray, early in the morning after staying up all night? Are you going to go to bed around 4 a.m? Are you going to go to bed around midnight? You don't do anything at all. And so there's a lot of ways it can be accomplished. But even more so, as I said, people disappear during the Omer. I mean, what is the Omer? Do we have to do it? Is it important? There's a lot of things that we say are taken away without the temple, this and that. And as you mentioned, the Ramban, I think, living in Tzfat, which obviously, from my windows in my apartment, you can see Mount Meron, and most people in Tzfat have some kind of view along those lines, by the way of the geography here. So, Mount Meron, Rabbi Shimon, Zohar, Lag BaOmer, the Omer, all these things have a very soft spot for a Galilean, right? And somebody more specifically in Tzfat. There's not so many people living in Meron. So for Tzfat, it's really a high time for obvious reasons. And even more so, since the Kabbalah is a northern Israel endeavor, historically in Israel, the current model of Kabbalah was pretty much fathered here from the Arizal and his students, and obviously from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his students, about 1,500 years earlier. The Kabbalah being in Tzfat is really essential. I think most people maybe have come into contact with something along those lines. And what's always funny was that when I was in yeshiva, we as Tzfatniks, learning Zohar was never really an issue. Not to say that, all we learn is Zohar. Very few people do, in fact, learn Zohar. But, to have a Zohar on your shelf is really not a strange thing for somebody in Tzfat. To be familiar with certain Kabbalistic ideas for a Tzfatnik is very common. For somebody living in Flatbush or Lakewood, they very most definitely are not familiar with these concepts. There's a lot of concepts that in Tzfat we're not familiar with. Maybe the Rishomi type of things. And certainly, visiting Hebron, there's a lot of historical things there that they know that we don't know. So everybody has their attributes that are great from wherever they're from. And again, Tzfat really focuses on the Kabbalah. So whenever we would be in yeshiva, particularly at night prayer, night davening, people would come in from all over the country. It was an eclectic minyan. And we took the Sphira very, very seriously. So, if it was the day was Chesed Sheba Gevura, whatever it was, we talked about it. We all had books that explained the meaning of the day and what comes out in the day. And it was always the highest time of the year in yeshiva. You really look forward to the new attribute and what's going to come, down energy-wise. And it was a very high time. And it was always shocking to me how guys would come from America at this time and visit or whatever, and they had no clue what the Sphira was. Not in terms of Sphirot, right? They knew counting, but they said they didn't ever, they were not practiced in accomplished in, let's say, mastering what attributes to look for every day. Every sitter has the attributes, but the people are not versed enough to really apply it in a meaningful way. Whereas, again, Sfat kind of has that tradition. That's one of the things we have. With that said, the 50 days of counting the Omer are a very special time. It brings you to what's called Nun Shari Bina, 50 gates of understanding. I mean, most people probably heard about in Egypt, the Jews sunk to the 49th level of impurity, and coming out, they were raised and elevated for 49 days until they received the Torah on the 50th day. And you say that when Moses died, later on, he achieved the highest pinnacle of man, 50 gates of understanding, which is at the 50th final level. And they were there at Sinai. They fell, obviously, the golden calf. So it's always the pinnacle to get back to that level of perfect understanding, which in Hebrew, if you're a man of understanding, you're called Navon, a man who hears the matter within the matter. And for that, the Ramban says, Chas v'shalom, that you should consider the 50 days of counting anything less than Chol Hamoed, right? It's one huge holiday, right? 7 times 7 is 49. And the whole idea of Passover is 7, right? And 7 weeks, all those sevens together to 50, he realizes that it's one long Chol Hamoed. And that Shavuos is brought down to be, it's called Etzeret. Just like in Sukkot is 7 days. And the 8th day is called Shmini Etzeret. I forget, what's the exact definition of Etzeret? Do you know? Yeah. So it's like the end part. I'm sure there's probably many connotations to it, but the point is that Shavuos is also called Etzeret. Therefore, it's the 50 days, again, is the one long Chol Hamoed connecting Passover, which is your 7-day holiday, right? And Shavuos is not a 7-day holiday, it's a 1-day holiday. So that's why it's the Etzeret, the Passover, and the Omer is one long Chol Hamoed. And what's interesting is, and the Zohar itself, strangely enough, the Zohar explains that there are hidden days of Shavuos, making it a complete 7-day holiday, but they're hidden. They're not actual Yontif or any kind of Chol Hamoed. What they are is the days that you bring offerings to the temple. So there's many insights. Like I said, Etzeret has all kinds of Kabbalistic insights, to the point where the pshat, the simple meaning, is kind of overlooked. That's why I asked you what it means, because I feel like it just takes on a grandiose kind of idea, and that's really what the Omer is about. It's about taking the vessels and concepts that we have throughout the year and really blowing it up to where every day you're living a spiritual attribute, and that's really what's special getting things started from the Ramban about what's great about the Sfiras Omer.
Okay, and how does this relate to the third temple from Shemayim, this whole Omer aspect?
So this is a huge debate people have. Does the temple? We think we did a class on it even. Does the temple come from heaven or do we build it ourselves? And not to get into that debate, but the opinion that it comes built from heaven. And the word "built" is kind of a strange word. It's not the word in Hebrew used. It's mishuchlal. Mishuchlal is really means fully functioning, right? So that alone also lends itself to many connotations, kind of allegorically, that it can go to, as opposed to a limited domain of just building it or coming down built. And so the opinion comes on the discussion of the Omer, because again, the Omer really is there's no such thing as Shavuot. Just to bring this in real quick, there's no such holiday as Shavuot. What there is, even though they counted the 50 days coming out of Egypt and they came to accept the Torah, that is not Shavuos. That is not the holiday of Shavuot, like by definition. But the definition is that when Passover ends the first nights of the holiday, and we would start counting, day one of the Omer, the Torah says you will count 50 days, and then you will arrive to 50 days where you'll come to the temple and wave the Omer, or you'll wave the grains, the new grains in the temple. And so you only get there after you've counted 50 days. So the 6th of Sivan, the date proper of Shavuos, there's no such thing in the Torah, right? There's no such thing as, hey, guess what, everybody, on the 6th of Sivan, no, you count 50 days. So, maybe theoretically you won't get there. I mean, God forbid. But, assuming you are successful and life continued those 50 days, you'll happen to find yourself in the temple. That's how the Torah learns it. And so now that we're in the mode of, counting and arriving in the temple, waving the Omer, Rashi says that there could be a scenario where the waving, takes a different course of action. And the reason why is because we are used to the temple not being there. What happens if the temple suddenly comes? And they ask the question in the Talmud, what do you mean? How? When? Where? Why? And Rashi, in his commentary, says, because there's an opinion that the temple will come built, or mishuchlal, at night, in the Pesach Shavuos Omer timeline. And so it's you see, it's a special time, the entire Zman, for all these grandiose ideas. And the actual counting of the Omer, the Talmud says, in the time that we don't have the temple, rabbinically we still count, and there's still a huge inyan, or reason to count. Again, you're working on your vessels, you're gaining Torah. So, on one hand, there is no Shavuos, there's counting. On one hand, there is no Shavuos without the temple, but there is kind of, it's these huge kind of yes and no ideas, and a powerful time. So the concept of the Omer, when there's no temple, we call it Zecher LaMikdash Hu. It's a remembrance for the temple, which, interestingly enough, has the gematria 713, which is tshuva. So it's a tremendous time of tshuva. And that's why I think even the pshat level, the simple meaning, I think it's kind of strange. Again, I'm saying, in Lakewood type places, I think the pshat is what they do learn on the Omer. And, being a Sfatnik all my religious life, I think we've kind of forgotten the pshat of all these things because of the grandiose level of what the Omer represents. I mean, the temple from heaven, Rabbi Shimon in the cave, the Zohar, it's like this is what you hear. And you hear, the Ramban about one huge thing. So you tend to forget what the rest of the world views the Omer, kind of a limited view of the pshat. Not to knock it. It's just that, I think Sfat mentality, Meron mentality, opens up the Omer to a really huge, exciting time of year.
This is the Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsAndNewsRadio.com. Thank you for joining us. Our guest this afternoon is Rabbi David Katz from Sfat. He's the co-author of the book, The World of the Ger. Rabbi Katz, what's interesting about Lag BaOmer, it falls on the week of Pesach Sheni and the week of Hod. Tell us, again, there are no accidents when it comes to the Torah, but why is that? Why is this the week of Hod and the week of Pesach Sheni? It's the same week as Lag BaOmer.
So this is the thing. It's like, every time you want the Omer to be simple, it blows up to huge stuff. So you read in the Torah that there's a Pesach Sheni. If you couldn't bring the Passover offering, literally it's a verse in the Torah that God says you can bring it a month later. And so what day does Pesach Sheni come out on? Like you said, the day of Chesed Sheba Hod, the first day of the week of Hod. It was Figure there's 7 sfirot involved out of the 10. That's 7 days, 7 weeks, and therefore every sphera, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Chod, Yesod, Malchus, has a week of counting, right? You're going to get Chesed of Chesed, Gevurah of Chesed, Tiferet of Chesed, Netzach of Chesed, Hod of Chesed, Yesod of Chesed, Malchus of Chesed. That's 7 days. That's 1 week. And then the next day you're going to count Chesed of Gevurah. This is going to continue until you get 7 times 7. All 7s are beloved. Another huge thing until you get and then obviously Shavuos is the 50th night. So as Pesach Sheni is the first day of the week of Hod, what people forget is that even though Pesach Sheni is 1 day, the week of Hod is an entire week long. So you have kind of a mystical hidden again entire week of Passover, not in the Pshat, but in this kind of mystical, metaphysical reality. And if you really meditate into it, you can find symbolism. I mean, what is Hod? Hod is Hanukkah, right? That's like the famous thing. Hod v'Hadar's Hanukkah. So if you meditate into the week of Hod, you can darshan out basically the entire Jewish year. So again, it's a super microcosm. The Hasidim don't say Tachnun in the shuls, right? So where I was in yeshiva, it's the Chernobyl shul. No one ever said Tachnun on that whole week. It's a quasi yontif. I mean, huge, even eccentric things are happening in the most standard, normal Judaism in Israel during the Omer, the week of Hod. So you see that people wear their holiday garments. It's a very, very special time, and that really is the essence of the Zohar. It's supernatural spirituality, and that's what some people come to loathe, and some people come to live by.
All right, now I understand there's a phrase, there is no such thing as Shavuot. What exactly does that mean? Because last I checked, Shavuot will be coming up in a few weeks.
Are you sure about that?
I think so. I'm pretty sure.
So the Talmud has a lot of funny ways of speaking, and the Torah itself. In fact, I gave it a Pirkei Avos shir earlier on, and what came up was our famous thing. It's forbidden to talk to a woman, and it's like what? Who? What? And the answer is don't be so sensitive and don't take it so literal. God throws jabs. Kind of like, the Mayweather fight, dodging the jab.
Well, Pacquiao didn't. He threw jabs. He didn't land jabs, but he tried.
I had to throw that in. But I'll throw that in. But okay. So
he'll be there all week at the Holiday Inn.
Don't forget to zip your waitstaff.
Yes.
So again, the Torah really does is a bit prickly. It says things. It uses things like slavery, poor and destitute, and it doesn't generally mean that in the pshat literal sense that you would take it to be. It's not to say that there isn't a pshat. It's just not what you would have thought. So they say by the forbidden labors of Shabbos, there's 40 minus 1. Well, why don't you just say 39? No, 40 minus 1. And as we said with Shavuos, again, there's no such thing as the 6th of Sivan. You count 50 days, right? The Torah just says that's when you know to go to synagogue, or not synagogue, but the temple, or without the temple, synagogue, for Shavuos, and when you've counted 50 days. But which is even more interesting is when you learn the 7 days of creation, right? The first 6 days followed by Shabbos. But on the 6th day, what does it say? Yom HaShishi. There's an extra hey, whereas usually it's Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi. So what do they say the HaShishi is? Shavuos. So it's all this like this is like two Jews, three opinions, right? There's no Shavuos, there's no 6th of Sivan. You count 50 days, but if you go back to Bereshis and you look at the 6th day of creation, like the 6th day, the 6th of Sivan is your quintessential 6th day. It was there in the beginning of creation. So it's kind of a story of two Jews, three opinions.
Now, could you go over again this 40 minus 1 concept? Because I've heard this before, and it's very interesting regarding Shabbos laws. So can you explain that a bit further, please?
Shabbos, you understand not.
Right, it's a Yoda thing.
I never really heard a good reason why, I think, but the Talmud says that, first of all, the law, really, practically speaking, there are 39 prohibitive labors in Shabbat. Each one was a creative labor done in effort to build the tabernacle. Right? So making bread was one, making a fire was one, pulling hairs out for hides was another, writing letters was another, building, tearing down, all these types of things. There's 39 of them. They're called avos malacha, the head categories. And you'll say, that's fine. So how can you break Shabbos by doing things that were only then or not applicable now? And this, for the fact they're called avot, head categories, there are also toldot, subcategories. Right? So, for example, what was done there, you can do something akin to it in our world today, not exactly like it was done there, but the same concept. So there's 39 of those, and the Talmud says, I don't know about your 39, but there's 40 minus 1. 40 minus 1, that gets you to 39. And the Vilna Gaon actually brings a deep idea in Shir Hashirim, in his commentary of Song of Songs, that when you have Nun Shari Bina 50 minus 1, right, like the next highest level is 49, right? 50 minus 1 is 49. 49 is the gematria Lev Tov, a good heart. So there's all this time about, while we're seeking the final level, there's like this idea of the pure good heart, and he speaks about being lovesick, right? We're still lovesick from Sinai, right? We're missing that one. So here's a little word for you. What's the gematria of the word echad? 13, which is the gematria ahava, love, right? So Shavuos is the eternally one missing, one, like one unit, but when you spell the word in Hebrew, echad, one, it's the same gematria, 13. The letters at themselves equal the value of the word echad, one, and also ahava, love. So that's always the thing, is that Shavuos we're seeking to fulfill the Song of Songs, to come back to the love of the Torah that was given at Sinai.
Again, this is the Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsAndNewsRadio.com. Thank you for joining us. Of course, the email is messiahhour@gmail.com, and you can email the station IsraelSportsAndNewsRadio@gmail.com. And if you'd like to make a financial contribution, that's through my PayPal account, IsraelSportsRadio@yahoo.com. Again, the PayPal is different than the other emails, so I'll say it again, IsraelSportsRadio@yahoo.com. Our guest is Rabbi David Katz, co-author of the book The World of the Ger. Now, Rabbi Katz, I'm curious, again, as I mentioned, Shavuot coming up, and you're in Tzfat. What is your particular plan? What are you going to be doing the night of Shavuot?
I'll be in bed. Oh, Shavuot. I thought you meant Lag BaOmer. Sorry about that. But I'll throw that in too, just for
fun.
Yeah. So I'll give both as kind of a whatever. Lag BaOmer is in Tzfat. Nothing happens. Zero. Nothing. What I do, because I don't want to sit on the bus for 5 hours each way, which is only a 20-minute bus ride normally. I mean, that's how much traffic. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people. Hundreds of thousands. All night long. So a lot of Tzfat people go, a lot of Tzfat people don't go. I personally like to sit on my porch learning Zohar, looking at the mountain catch on fire with people slaughtering sheep. And, they shack the animals, they eat, and it's a wild party. I mean, they have a great time. We're talking about kosher slaughter and eating just, a barbecue, but, really kind of ancient, symbolic way. Shavuos, on the other hand, is very Tzfat, right? Because Meron, there's not much going on. Tzfat has a lot of synagogues, one of the highest per capita in the world. Shavuos in Tzfat is actually pretty interesting. Every synagogue has classes going on because it's a naturally spiritual town, and the old city is enclosed, so there's no, you can't drive cars in the old city, basically, similar to Jerusalem. Therefore, people are walking around, and it's very happy. You eat milchiks, so everyone's got their lasagnas, and cheesecake for breakfast and davening. And it's a total change in spin, you know. Everyone's up all night, and usually Sfat is a quiet town and simmers down around 7 p.m., 8 p.m. So it's a total role reversal. People are out and about. Very joyous time. I think it's one of the highest times of the year, personally, the Shavuos night learning in Sfat.
All right, let's talk a bit about who was Reb Shimon, because obviously the holiday is dedicated to him. It's his Yortzeit, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Who exactly was this man?
Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, there's a famous story, I'm trying to remember Baal Peh, in the Talmud. I forget the exact details, but it was a story with Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Gamliel, and there was a big machlokis in the Beis Medrash, all this stuff, and there was a bacher. It stood up. I forget exactly what he said, so pardon me on that. But the idea was that the Talmud's trying to paint a picture of. There's all these great sages, and then they said, by the way, what was the name of the kid, the young guy? And said, oh, that was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So he was very strong. He eventually had to run away from the Roman authorities. Rabbi Akiva was going to get knocked out. A lot, the 10 martyrs are going to get killed. Rabbi Shimon hid in a cave, actually not Meron. It's a cave. My friend told me it's actually out by Carmiel. We're supposed to take a trip out there soon to go check it out. So he and his son and students were in the cave for, I forget what it was, 12 years, and then he went back, and then another 12 years, whatever it was. But they were there. They were hidden in sand so as to not be nude, to save their garments for Shabbos. They were miraculously saved because a carob tree was there to eat from. They had revelation of Eliyahu. I mean, this was one of those powerful times. So the Zohar mentality and mindset was founded at that time. Well, also it was inspired by Rabbi Akiva, the teacher of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And he was a great Tana. The Tanaim were the original sages of the Talmud and the Mishnah before its redaction, which was a later group of rabbis. And so he was a creator of law, spreading the law, and basically credited with journaling and encapsulating the esoteric tradition that he received from his masters. And the Zohar is the craftsmanship of encapsulating those ideas, techniques, meditations, tradition, culture of esoterics in Judaism, going all the way back, and basically making it available to be passed on from a student-teacher relationship, basically until this day, and it'll continue.
All right, again, this is the Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsAndNewsRadio.com. Thank you for joining us. Our guest is Rabbi David Katz, co-author of the book World of the Ger. I'm going to ask an interesting question. I hope people won't throw rocks at me, especially on Shabbat, because that's not cool. But, he wrote the Zohar, but people have different interpretations of the Zohar. It's not literal. It's not real. I'll straight out ask you this. Is the Zohar fake?
The complaints people have, I'll give you an actual example just to show you the kind of attack, right? So number one, the Zohar suddenly pops up around the year 1200 and by Moshe de Leon in Spain. And he claims to have manuscripts from Rabbi Shimon and his students that were they were refined over however many years was that? I mean, like 700 years or something, right? And that they were just, redacted and refined and elucidated and expanded and really perfected. And so Moshe de Leon publishes it, claiming that it had been perfected over those generations. That Rabbi Shimon brought down the tradition in terse fashion. And I think it was Rav was the one that really was the master of revealing and concealing in the script. And again, it was refined over generations, and the tradition was given, the keys were given to really how to knowing where to expand and expound and when to conceal until it was finally ready. This is not a new concept, right? The Gemara was the same way. It was worked on for hundreds of years before Ravina and Ravashi redacted it in Pumbedisa, right? So the concept of an oral tradition text worked on over hundreds of years is not new. The question is, was it authentic at all? Or did Moshe de Leon do some kind of demonic trance writing, all these things that people claim? And they have reasons, they say, for claiming that on Moshe de Leon. I think it was, what's his name? Rav Yitzchak of Akko. Pardon me if I didn't get the name right. I'm not an expert in the attacks on the Zohar. But they went to Moshe de Leon's wife. Again, if I'm not exactly perfect in the facts, pardon me. This is not my specialty because I'm a firm believer in the authenticity of the Zohar. So I don't spend my days and nights trying to find a text on normative Judaism at this point. But the attack is they went to his wife, and I think she said things that that were not true, and no one knew what to believe. So one of the major attacks that I've heard that I feel I've personally answered is that in Ladino, because they were in Spain. In Ladino, a synagogue is called the Isnoga. And there's a teaching in the Zohar that it's kind of, I'll speak in Hebrew because it doesn't really matter for the sake of this discussion, that Malchus, the last level of Sfirot, is a congregation of lights from the upper Sfirot, and therefore it's called Esnoga. But the Hebrew doesn't say Esnoga, it's called Eish Noga, which means like the glow of the fire. Now they're going to say, how did he know what an Esnoga is as a context of Beit Knesset? It must be that De Leon took the concept from 1200 Spain and wrote the Zohar claiming this is what they called it. So do you want to hear my refutation of this, Ari? Did you ever think that the Spaniards learned the Zohar and named their synagogues after a Zohar term? Right? It's like today the synagogue being called Ohel Moshe, right? And saying, you see, it's a fake. There's no Torah. There's only Ohel Moshe in 2015. I mean, it's ridiculous. Why the teaching in the Zohar to call Malchus a Beit Knesset, which is the term today for synagogue, spiritually speaking, what do you think Malchus is? It is a Beit Knesset, a house of gathering for the upper seven Sfirot, or the upper six Sfirot from it. Right? So Rabbi Shimon calls Malchus a gathering of lights, a Beit Knesset, Eish Noga, a glowing fire. That's what Malchus is in like every Kabbalistic book in the world. Right? It's not antithetical at all. So in Spain, they were very Kabbalistic, very much so. All the authorities and commentators there. So for them to have the manuscripts in past circles, and then to pull out the concepts, right, of Eish Noga, and then to call the modern invention of the synagogue an Isnoga, not a stretch at all. In fact, it's extremely logical. Why would they not? Right? If they're going to study the Zohar, let's start calling Judaic property under Zoharic terms. And the Sephardim, by definition, are very into Zohar. So I don't find anything bizarre about it at all. I think the attacks are lame. I think they don't understand what the nature of the Zohar is. And the nature of the Zohar is, I'm gonna say this really in a dorky kind of way, okay? But God is cool. God is the epitome of cool. Like Jewish kind of, secret society of 36 hidden tzaddikim, right? That stuff's awesome, is it not? The God, has ways of interacting with society and mankind and Magidim and Malachim and Giloi Eliyahu, right? So if God wants to make it from Rabbi Shimon that the Zohar stays underground for 700 some years by Siyata D'Shmaya, Shlocha Pratis, and Mazel, then hey, I'm all for it. And that's what the Zohar represents. Metaphysical bonds of great Gedolim working on the esoteric secrets of creation that are bound to bring the Geula in the end of days. That's what God does. That's like the essence of the Jewish people and their best light. And the Zohar is a reflection of that best light, which is why it's called Zohar, which means brilliant light. So absolutely, the Zohar is true. Now, am I claiming it has psychic powers and chants and all these weird things? Those ideas, I've learned the entire Zohar. Those are not in there. People would say that never saw the Zohar. They heard it from a goofy friend who went to the Kabbalah Center, and Ashton Kutcher told him he heard from Madonna that there's all kind of crazy chants in there if you pay attention. I don't buy it.
I certainly would rather go with you than Ashton Kutcher. You know, Ashton Kutcher, if you're listening, I respect your work as an actor, but not as a rabbi. So just stick to what you know. Now, you know, one of the things, I went to Meron on Lag BaOmer about 7 years ago. One of the things I noticed was there's a lot of different types of Jews group-wise. You have the Breslov, you have Chabad, you have a little of everything. And what's interesting is they all touch upon this concept of there's a Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation. So can you just talk about what each of the groups believe in regards to that concept?
Yeah, I mean, this is something it was a slow build on my soul, I think. When I first got to yeshiva, I really didn't understand this. Everyone's like, hey, we're going to Meron. We're going to go see Rabbi Shimon because he's Moshe Rabbeinu. It's like, what? Who? What? How's that work? Right? And it was like, hey, today's the 7th of Adar, and we don't know where Moshe's buried. Let's go to Meron. It's like, how's that work? Right? So it was bothersome at first, and I thought it was hokey. Right? And then you start to read the real Sfarim, and everyone has this tradition that there's a Moshe Rabbeinu reincarnated in every generation. And there's different ways it works. And at first you think it's like a goofy Nanach thing or Yechia Denenu thing, but it isn't. It's really like, the Vilna Gaon brings it. It's like one of those things that's a classic, even not Chazal, but it's a truism in Judaism. They say that the Erev Rav turnover every generation, and Moses is there to kind of counteract them. They get it from the fact that Moses was buried opposite of the Baal, right, the Avodah Zorah. And so every generation has a Moshe Rabbeinu. Every Chiddush that comes down is from Moshe Rabbeinu. Talmud Chacham is a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu. And this it's all is rooted in the burial of Moshe Rabbeinu. The type of burial he had, says Yosef Karo, was such that his body would never be able to be worshipped as an idolatry, which is also part of when Pinchas killed Zimri and Cosby and Moses forgot the law on purpose. So what was there in part in connection with the golden calf was that Moses was subjected possibly to becoming an Avodah Zarah because of the sins that were committed with the golden calf and with Zimri and Cosby. So to prevent that, from Moses' lack of entering the land, God made it so that his body would never be an Avodah Zarah, but he would have to turn over in every generation to keep producing the Torah and the Veli that would eventually vanquish Avodah Zarah. Right? So every generation has the scholarship and such, and Chabad holds that there were X amount of Moshe Rabbeinus of the generation. Let's see if I can figure it out from memory. Rabbi Shimon, Arizal, Baal Shem Tov, and let me see if you can guess the fourth one.
Lubavitcher Rebbe?
Here you go. Now, Breslov Shita. Rabbi Shimon, Arizal, Baal Shem Tov. Who's the next one?
I'm going to go with Rabbi Nachman on that one.
That's right. And after him, who is it?
After him? Yeah. Oh, I don't know.
Mashiach.
Okay.
And that cannot be for Chabad, right? Because Chabad, the Rebbe, as they say.
They think is? Okay, Mashiach. Very interesting. Okay.
Chesed LaAvraham, the Nefesh of Moshe Rabbeinu is reincarnated every generation. Like literally Moshe. By the way, they say the same thing about Aaron is reincarnated into every Kohen Gadol. Right? So it's interesting. Then there's the Gra. For all the stark Litvaks out there that want to be misnagdim and say, but we don't buy that stuff. Well, you do. Because the Gra says it in his commentary of Mishlei, that Moshe Rabbeinu is Galgel every generation. And everybody holds pretty much that the Arizal really was a special Giloi of Moshe Rabbeinu. And the Vilna Gaon says it was the beginning of the light of Mashiach ben Yosef. Rabbi Shimon obviously was Zohar, undisputable. The whole Vilna Gaon, Baal Shem Tov, Ramchal, Chida, Rashash era of 1740 was another one of those time periods. The Gra says of himself he was a type of Moshe Rabbeinu of his generation. And the whole question from there is, who's the true tzaddik going to be now? Right? Was it a Rebbe that's already lived in the last, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Nachman? Was there anybody since that 1740 time period, which is pretty much undisputed as a special time in every genre of Judaism? The only question is, did anybody come since then, or are we waiting for Mashiach? And the idea is that Mashiach Tzidkenu is that Mashiach reveals the ultimate revelation of Moshe Rabbeinu. What is righteous? What is righteousness? What is the tzaddik? And that's what we're all arguing about. It's what we're all waiting for. Is Lubavitch Chassidus and the Rebbe, is that the quintessential level of Tzidkis? Is it Rabbi Nachman and Tzaddik Emes? Is it the Gra and the Misnagdim Litvaks? Is it Kabbalah Zohar? I don't think it should be a competition, an argument. Look, the Rebbe was great. Rabbi Nachman was awesome. The Gra was awesome. They weren't Mashiach, okay? They definitely were the light to Mashiach. They brought us closer to Mashiach. There will be a Mashiach that will build the temple, bring it down, whatever it happens. And that will be the essence and stamp of righteousness for eternity. It's not to diminish those guys' light, and the counting of the Omer and Rabbi Shimon and the Zohar is really the beginning of that light. And we shouldn't walk and tread and trample on it, just because we're getting close, right? We should really see that Rabbi Shimon's words are still strong, and these great tzaddikim, and God willing, Mashiach will come and basically just strengthen the righteousness in the world from pre-existing Torah and tzaddikim.
Amen to that. A few more minutes left with Rabbi David Katz, co-author of the book, The World of the Ger. Again, this is the Messiah Hour at IsraelSportsNewsRadio.com. We have a lot of customs regarding Lag BaOmer and Shavuot. I want to know if you could talk a bit about that. Especially Shavuot, you have staying up all night to tikkun, the Jews sleeping in, I believe, when the Torah was given on that day on Mount Sinai. Then you have some people say, don't stay up all night because it's going to throw off your davening in the morning. So if you talk a little bit about the customs, how they vary of Shavuot, and the customs that vary of Lag BaOmer.
Shavuot, people, it kind of changes over the years, I think. When I got indoctrinated into yeshivish learning, nobody said don't learn all night on Shavuos. Not that I was around. And nowadays, people are saying, you can't daven with kavana. You should go to bed. If you can't daven, it's a chil Hashem. They say all kind of radical things. I'll tell you, what I do, what I like to do, is I'll just my own personal avoda, if you don't mind. Yeah. I like to learn all night long. I really don't have a limitation in that regard to a fault. Too many nights I don't sleep 24 hours throughout the year getting work done. So it's not a problem for me to stay up. Therefore, on Shavuos is really the key concept of staying up all night. Tikkun Chatzos, which that's why I like to stay up all night, is just because there's tremendous hashpah with Torah. I mean, right now it's midnight for me and you, Ari. And I don't know about you, but you can just feel it coming down. I mean, I do. When we do these classes and lessons and radio shows and learning, there's nothing beats the night. I mean, in yeshiva, like I said, we got the goofy minyan at 10 o'clock at night where all the eclectic Jews would come. I mean, that's where the action was. We live for waiting to see who was going to walk in the door, because the later you get in Sfat for a minyan, it's just like you're bringing the most random parts of Israel together, and it was just the best times. And Shavuos, again, is like the epitome of that. You can learn Talmud, just pick a piece that you love and you don't know so well that you have to struggle to get through a little bit. And you got your coffee going. Everyone's active. It's an amazing time. A lot of my co-author of the book, Chaim Klorfin, we have learned a lot of Kabbalah over the years. We started learning think we did some Arizal years ago. Then we did Zohar a couple years. Last year we did Shari Ora, the names of God. So, pick something challenging, pick something deep and meaningful. Struggle, right? Really struggle, but enough that you can get through it. But where you have to discuss it with people, work together, and you'll make a keli for the revelation to come down. I promise you. You might get off topic, you might not stay in the book, but it's just make your mind work, make your mind think, have some coffee, daven, watch the sun come up, and enjoy really good cheesecake the next day, that morning. And for Lag BaOmer, we know that people do bonfires. It's kind of strange. Sfat doesn't do bonfires, really. I don't know why, but my kids' grandparents live in Cologne. All of Cologne's on fire. It's much more exciting in Cologne, which is very strange. The center of the country by Tel Aviv is more Leibniz than Sfat. But again, the answer is because Sfat's on the border of Meron, and everyone's in Meron. I mean, really, hundreds of thousands are there, and all of Sfat's diehard Hasidim, they're there, and they're dancing. There's many free tents, huge tents of kugel and cholent, drinks. It's a wild time. Buying books, 500-foot tall image of the Rebbe. I mean, the Chabad's there with their stuff, Bressel's there with their stuff, as you mentioned. It's a wild time. What really kind of irks me is there was certain shuvas given out by Rav Ovadia Yosef that said when Lag BaOmer was Motzi Shabbos not to light a bonfire because you'll come to light the fire on Shabbos, and they wanted to move Lag BaOmer off a day. That's unacceptable, right? You don't play around with the Zohar and Ruchnius. I don't care if it's a minhag or not. It's a very special time, and I think that it's symbolic of that sect of Israel's views of how to appreciate the mystical sect of Torah, the Zohar, and I think some people don't see it as a key component of the regimen. I think our message from Sfat is you don't have to go to the Kabbalah Center and learn from Ashton Kutcher, but you can bring Zohar into your life. Just have it on your bookshelf. Don't be afraid of it. It really is not evil or satanic, and all these things that they say are a forgery. Just be open to it. It's a great bracha to have. I think Sfat is that message, and Sfat receives it from Meron, and this is the time of year to promote that, and the counting of the Omer to show that there's just you really can't summarize it in words. It's just part of Judaism, and it's a shame that people want to cut the arm off of Judaism when it doesn't need to be. And I think there's a lot of lack of achdus from that. I think the Rav Ovadia Yosef camp showed that lack of achdus by the comments about the non-Jews. It doesn't need to be stated in the show, and about the different kind of kippas that we wear. Lag BaOmer is the opposite of that. No one's going to call you a name on Lag BaOmer. No one's going to make fun of your yarmulke. If you're Jewish or not Jewish, no one's going to point you out. They're going to give you a beer, give you a Coke, give you a kugel, and they're going to want to dance. And I think that's symbolic of Lag BaOmer. That's what it's about. It's universal harmony and joy. And I'm proud that it comes out of the north by Sfat and Meron.
Yeah, and what's interesting is it has such an effect on Israeli culture. You're talking approximately 1 million people will be in Meron for one day. You don't really have that in any other day of the year. I mean, even Yom Kippur, you have about 90% of Israelis fast, but they're not all in one central area. So my last question is regarding Torah culture and Israeli culture, and I want to read you a quote. This is what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said. Here it goes. Here's the quote. Now it is my desire to reveal secrets. The day will not go to its place like any other, for this entire day stands within my domain. And then it talks about how daylight was miraculously extended until Rabbi Shimon had completed his final teaching, and then he died. So if you could talk about how that relates to the culture of this day of Lag BaOmer, not just from a Torah culture perspective, from an Israeli culture perspective as well.
Well, that's what I'm saying. In Sfat, Sfat is not a benchmark of Israeli culture. We are Torah Haredi culture here. It's a Haredi town. Even the seculars here kind of give way to Haredishkeit, right? No buses run on Shabbos. No restaurants are open. So even if you are eating pork on Saturday morning in Sfat, you can't really do anything about that openly, right? Again, the buses don't run, no one's open. Sfat and Shabbos is really probably the most sublime Shabbos on the planet because it's a Haredi governed system citywide, right? Jerusalem is not. It's Jerusalem. You have Machal Shabbos all over the city, out in the open. Here, the entire city is dead in a good way. That if people are out walking, it's really beautiful. And so, with that said, Meron is not an Israeli experience here. It's a local experience. Now, when you go to the Merkaz, everyone's lighting bonfires. So there it's the exact opposite. There you have a secular-driven society, and all of a sudden they're lighting bonfires. You're making bonus about driving up to Meron for like the family truckster, right? You're talking about guys getting on buses, making cheshbon about going to Meron. I had the misfortune of trying to get a bus from Yerushalayim. I think it was to Meron. I had an appointment in Jerusalem the day of Lag BaOmer. Again, I didn't take Lag BaOmer seriously because I live here, so it's like not a big deal, And I had to go down there, and I totally forgot. I think I was there for a couple of days, and I was coming back, and I just totally forgot about the bus situation. I didn't forget about the holiday. I didn't remember that all of Jerusalem was going to be navigating to the north. And man, it was a brawl to get on the bus. But you see, they look forward. This is like, I'll never forget. There was this guy I sat next to, this yeshiva Haredi guy, and he was learning his Mishnayos on the bus ride up. And I heard him on the phone telling his friends how he's going to Meron. Like, that's what it is. In Sfat, we don't know that. Sfat, we don't know from this. No one calls your friend in Sfat saying, I'm going to Meron. That's just a given. But the rest of the country, it's like, wow, what are you doing for Lag BaOmer? And they're very conscious of it. And that's why Takana is like, light the next day and don't light a bonfire. Nobody listened to Rabbi David Yosef. I'm talking mutiny here. And people respect him. My wife was Moroccan. So they respect his psak. They live by the Yalkas Yosef, right? But when it comes to this, nobody paid attention. It's like we're lighting bonfires, whether you like it or not. And it wasn't seen as any kind of desecration or Chilul Hashem. It's just this is Israeli culture. Like you said, this is one of the true hidden gems and lights in Israel. And again, I'm proud to be a part of it in this generation where we're in the land. I'm in Sfat, Meron, and the whole country really appreciates the essence of what Lag BaOmer is.
And one tip for anyone going on a bus to anywhere on Lag BaOmer or in general when it's crowded, elbows out. I'll just say that, elbows out. And I'm speaking to a wrestler, so he knows what that's all about. Again, this has been a fine episode of Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsAndNewsRadio.com. You can send an email to the show, MessiahHour@gmail.com, or to the station, IsraelSportsAndNewsRadio.com. My guest has been Rabbi David Katz, co-author of the book, The World of the Ger. You can go to his website, solmazal.com or gergear.com, or you can purchase the book on Amazon. Rabbi Katz, thank you for being on the program today. Great job, as always.
Thanks for having me back. We'll see everybody in Meron with elbows out.
Hopefully, yes. Or you can stay in your city. I'm staying in Jerusalem, going to a Nevesh B'Nevesh event. So wherever you do it, just have a good time and have fun, be safe. But if you're going on a bus, stick the elbows out. You don't got to be like Manny Pacquiao and get busted up. Just put your elbows out. Thank you everyone for listening. Have a great day. Enjoy the holiday, and it is a holiday. Don't look at it as anything lower than that. It's a great day. So enjoy that day. We're gonna have some more exciting programming coming up on the next few weeks. So for Rabbi Katz, I'm Ari Lewis. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day. Be well and Shavua Tov.